Okay. So we're going to today, being that in the Dvar Malchus, being that in the talk of this week and connected to this week's parsha, is the significance of the place of the Rebbe, Malchum says the house, the synagogue, the special place of the Rebbe, Malchum says that. So we're gonna speak about that today with Hashem's help. See how it pertains to us with Hashem's help, wherever we are, even if we're not there at the moment, and give us more of a desire to go there, and get other people to go there as well, and mainly to understand how this is connected to coming of Moshiach, and let's hope that happens immediately. And we'll see the Rebbe, Malchum says the Rebbe King Moshiach with their own eyes. So the parsha this week is Parshas Mishpatim, which is talking about laws that are the practical laws between a person and his friend. They're talking about not the laws of the Torah, like putting on tefillin, the laws of some basic laws are in there also that are not between a person and his friend. If I'm not mistaken, it mentions about not mixing milk and meat together. If I'm not mistaken, it also says about not wearing shatnez, not wearing a mixture of wool and linen. So there are some mitzvahs that are not so logical in there, but the majority of the parsha this week is about the logical mitzvahs. The mitzvahs about not stealing and about what happens if someone was watching someone's object and then it got ruined or got stolen because they have to pay for it. It's all about the logical, like money matters and similar logical mitzvahs, the logical laws of the Torah. And has a lot to do with courts, with Jewish courts. And our sages tell us that the end of last week's parsha talks about the Mizbeach, the altar, that they brought the sacrifices in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Holy Temple. And then the beginning of this week's parsha, the continuation is about the court, the Jewish court. And our sages tell us that this teaches us that the Jewish court has to be near the altar, where they sacrifice the sacrifices. And I saw an interesting explanation this week of the reason behind that, what the altar has to do with the sacrifices. The sacrifices are connected to the Jewish court. Why does the Jewish court have to be there? In other words, the place of the Jewish court has to be near the sacrifices. So I saw an interesting explanation about this based on the talks of the Rabbi Malchum says that the idea is that the altar, it says, is the place where the Akedah took place. The story of the Akedah is the story we say every morning of Avram attempting, according to the command of Hashem, to do something really crazy, and that was to slaughter his own son as a sacrifice to Hashem, which Hashem commanded him to do that, but he was told immediately before he actually did it that he passed the test of being willing to do that to his son, and he was able to now not, heaven forbid, kill his son, rather bring an animal instead of his son, and that was a very big test for Avram to have a command of slaughtering his own son for a sacrifice to Hashem. And he was able to withstand the test. He was prepared to do it, and he was about to do it, and then Hashem told him to stop and to bring an animal instead. And we're told that that took place on the Temple Mount, on the place where the Mizbeach is. Rambam writes that's where the Mizbeach, the altar, is built, is on that place. It became a place to offer sacrifices. And obviously, we don't sacrifice people, we sacrifice animals. And so that's where the Sanhedrin has to be. The Jewish court has to be near that. And just to think for a moment, what the Holy Temple is going to be built very soon. That's what we see a lot of signs. And that's going to bring peace to the world, because we're told when the Holy Temple was standing, there was a lot of peace. The world was a peaceful place, because Hashem had a place in the world that Hashem was at peace. Hashem had a permanent dwelling place. From personal experience, when you don't have a permanent dwelling place, when you're living in temporary places, it's not very peaceful. Peaceful is when you have a permanent place. You know, you have a place to go that you know that's your home, and it's you have peace of mind. So when Hashem is missing that, at the moment Hashem is technically missing that. Hashem doesn't have his permanent home. Hashem already has been going from place to place. How much we could comprehend it, but that's what we're told, that although Hashem is everywhere, but he reveals himself in the main soul, the main synagogue of the generation. That's where Hashem rests his evident presence. We could see clearly that Hashem is revealed in the main soul of that time, the main synagogue of that time, which over the years has changed from many places. And the permanency, and not only permanency, but when it's a permanent place, so then it's more of the real, so to say, the real thing. When it's the real thing, Hashem already had set up that the sacrifices have to be brought specifically in the Holy Temple. So, like the real play, we don't bring sacrifices in a shul, in the synagogue, even in the main synagogue, even in the central synagogue of the generation, which in our generation is 770, is Moshiach. We don't bring sacrifices there. We're not allowed to. We're only allowed to bring sacrifices in the Holy Temple, which hopefully will be rebuilt. And it's in a certain way, because it's called a Mikdash Ma'at. It's only called a minor, it's called a small sanctuary. It's not the main sanctuary. It's not the real thing in the most literal sense. So that is the place that Hashem set. And why does the Sanhedrin have to be there? Why does the Jewish court need to be there? So in the Dvar Malchus this week, the Rebbe Malchus says that gives a very interesting explanation of the connection of the two. That the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash, this symbolizes the redemption, the coming of Moshiach to redeem the Jewish people. And we'll have once again a holy temple, and we're told that the third one is going to be the perfect one. In other words, the first and second one, the Mishkan, they were all incomplete in a certain way. And only the third one, which we're waiting for, is going to be a complete one. The Mishkan obviously was not a permanent building. The Mishkan, you know what the Mishkan is? The Mishkan, have you heard of the Mishkan? I've heard of it. Yeah. Okay, the Mishkan is it's called in English the tabernacle. Tabernacle is the sanctuary, like the mikdash, the sanctuary that they had in the desert, and they had to erect it they traveled through the desert. Every time they camped in a place, they would put up this mobile sanctuary, and then they would take it down when they moved to the next place. It's So obviously that wasn't a permanent edifice, and it wasn't a complete edifice. So that was certainly not the completeness. And the first holy temple, the first Beis Hamikdash that was on the Temple Mount, we're told was also wasn't complete. It was very, very high spiritual, it was great spiritual revelations there, but it wasn't such a amazing building. And also the ark with the tablets, the orain with the luchos, it wasn't in its place. The main, according to the Ramban, the main part of the Holy Temple is the Ark. And that Ark, at the end of the period of the first Holy Temple, was already stored away because they were scared of the enemies going to come and steal it. So they hid it away. So already the first Holy Temple wasn't complete. And we're told in general, something ends up happening, so that shows that it's not complete. The second one, second Holy Temple, it lasted for more years, but it wasn't either complete. It was missing 5 things. Among them was the Ark. And it also wasn't as spiritual. It was under the other governments. The whole Jewish people at that time were under other governments, and it was dependent a lot on the non-Jews' permission, and it was a lot of limitations. So although it was a beautiful building, it wasn't that spiritual. It wasn't a very godly building. So we're told the third one is going to be the complete one. It's going to be the perfection. And that is what we're heading for. We're heading for the third Beis Hamikdash, the third Holy Temple, which is going to be the complete one and bring the completeness of all of them. So,
Here it is.
yeah, I guess.
Oh,
yeah. So, what is this mean for us practically? Because at the moment we're still, like it says in the Sikha, we're still in Galus, and we hope that that will immediately change. But as it is, we're still stuck here. So practically, what does it mean for us? So getting back to what we were saying earlier, what is the connection that Sanhedrin, the Jewish court, has to be near the Mizbeach? Why does the Jewish court need to be near the Mizbeach? Why does the Jewish court have to be near the sanctuary? So we said that the sanctuary is all about the coming of Moshiach. Okay, so sanctuary is all about the coming of Moshiach. And the Jewish court, the Rebbe says is that the Jewish court is ruling that we could already identify Moshiach, and the Moshiach's coming is as a reality, something happening. So we could understand this with Hashem's help more, according to what the Rebbe Malchus that brings in the Sikha about the beating of the swords into plowshares. That Moshiach is convincing the nations of the world to beat their swords into plowshares. In other words, to take their weapons and make them into useful items for the needs of the country, for needs that are positive needs. And the idea of the nations coming to this conclusion is a prophecy. We have an avur that this is going to happen. And the fact that it's happening, the fact that the non-Jews, and it happened actually this year is going to be the 31st anniversary, and we're actually right now, Tuesday night was the, if I'm not mistaken, it was Tuesday night, that the President of the United States in 1991, he spoke to the nation of America. He gave a speech to America, stating that they're gonna put more effort into disarmament, taking away the weapons, and instead using the weapons for the physical needs of the country, the nutrition, the Calcula, the how do you say Calcula, the economy, the sustenance of the country. And the Rav Malchus says that this is a result, because when the Jewish court makes a ruling, it influences the world. And being that the Jewish court made a ruling that the coming of Moshiach is a reality, that we could already identify Moshiach according to the Torah, that this is a talk, the Rav Malchus says it clearly, Nesi Dereinu Moshiach Tzidkeinu, the leader of our generation, our righteous Moshiach. And the Rav Malchus like we spoke about last week, says that Miyad is Rosh Tevis Menachem, Moshiach, his name is Menachem, Yud is Yosef Yitzchak, the second, the sixth Chabad Rebbe, and Duber is the second name of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, that's acronym of Miyad. The Rav Malchus makes it very clear in the Sikha who Moshiach is and where he lives. He lives specifically in New York. And his soul is the center of spreading goodness and kindness throughout the world, to the degree of even Russia coming to its change and its not allowing the Jewish people to keep the Torah, and they changed. Baruch Hashem. I had for 60 years. Soviet Union, from if I remember correctly what this person told me in the 19, well, I think it was 60 years. So no. In 1991 is when the communism was stopped. Instead, they put officially a what is it? What is it called? Democracy. They changed their government.
Yeah. How old were you in 1991?
I was 8 years old. Yes, and I remember very well. What was I speaking to recently? Yeah, I was speaking to someone who remembers protesting. I remember the songs. I wasn't protesting because I was a little boy, but there was a lot of protesting. Let our people go. I remember the songs that were the famous Jewish songs about the Jews behind the Iron Curtain. That's what it was called, the Iron Curtain, because they didn't let the Jews leave. Russia didn't let the Jewish people leave their country. They were stuck in the country, and they did not allow the observance of the Jewish religion. They made it very, very hard for the Jewish people to observe the Jewish religion. That was for many years. And then in 1991 is when it all changed. And they suddenly turned around and said, we're going to help you, all the Jews, not only leave, we'll help them move to the Holy Land. And already in the early 1980s, the Rabbi Malchus said a prophecy, prophetic words that this is going to happen, and said to Professor Browner, if I'm not mistaken, that they need to prepare big cities for the major immigration of Russians that are going to immigrate. And when they were told to do this, they didn't really comprehend that it's actually possible for this to happen. But they did it, and it happened. There's a major immigration of Jewish people from Russia, and obviously, because we have a prophet, we have the Rebbe of Moshiach, so Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, was prepared to take these Jewish people in, and that's what happened. And this is a result, the Rebbe of Moshiach says, a result of the accomplishment of Moshiach, of spreading righteousness in Judaism, even in the hardest situations. And that's the idea of the Beis in the court being near the Beis, near the Mizbeach, near the Beis Hamikdash. This, the Rebbe Malchus explains to mean that the Jewish court is ruling about the coming of Moshiach, which is similar and is connected to the Beis Hamikdash. That's why the Sanhedrin is near the Mizbeach. That's how the Rebbe says that, if I understand correctly, one of the things the Rebbe says is saying in the Sikha. And I personally had an interesting thing. If I'm not mistaken, it was Mamish these days. It could have been actually this day. There in 2007, I think 2007 or 2008. I don't remember which. I think it was. I don't remember right now. I opened an organization which we have till today, which is called the Long Live Our Master, Teacher, and Rebbe, King Messiah, Forever and Ever organization. Which this organization, Baruch Hashem, since it was opened, it actually accomplished quite a lot. We, in the beginning of our efforts, we were giving out a lot of pictures of the Rebbe Moshiach. We gave out some 20 or 30,000 pictures of the Rebbe Moshiach. We were trying to initiate a movie, like a really high quality movie about the Rebbe Moshiach being Moshiach. So we had this whole write up about it, and we were like giving this write up to really wealthy people, trying to get the funding for it. That's still, or whatever, when it will happen is another story. But certainly, a lot of information about Moshiach got to very, very important people as a result of this effort. That's most certain. And one of the main accomplishments that this organization has accomplished so far is the translation of all the very exciting Mashiach Sichas of the Rebbe Moshiach, and got, Baruch Hashem, hundreds, or I don't know how many people to learn these Sichas. And yeshivas learned it because they took the translations and they got the Racham to learn it. And they had all these, they still have all these like contests, whatever you want to call it, like to make sure you know it and get tested and you get prizes and a lot this organization with Hashem's help got in getting the message of Yichid to the world till today, that whenever we get a donation via PayPal, which that's where our organization is mainly shows up, everyone gets a receipt from Long Live Our Master, Teacher, and Rebbe, King Messiah, Forever and Ever organization. So now this organization, why am I saying this now? Because this organization, making it a official organization in the government in the state of New York, it took a lot of time, because at that point, this is going back like 15 years ago, things were not as, the world has been changing extremely drastically over the years. Things were still not as easily accomplished as they are today. Today, things are a lot easier to be accomplished, I would think. I haven't tried to open an organization recently, but in New York, maybe it's different. But certainly at that time, opening an organization in New York was not so simple because you had to fill out these papers, and everything had to be perfect. There couldn't be like copy marks. I don't know. They had like, so I had to like file this thing a few times until they finally agreed. Now, one of the things that we had a complication with was that we made the Rabbi Malchus the president of our organization. There has to be 3 people on the organization. We made the Rabbi Malchus the president, and there was me and my friend were the managers or something. I don't know. So we filed this. We had this. This was the other technicalities of the marks on the paper and all that. Whatever that technically was manageable. Even though it was a headache because they kept complaining that there was a little mark. I don't know. It was quite an interesting experience. But the part that's bringing me to mention it right now is that we had a complaint. Okay, we got a complaint that they claimed, which is something that we needed to explain why it's otherwise. That Chas v'Shalom, the Rebbe Malchus says they cannot be the president of our organization, because to be a president of our organization, they had the misunderstanding, and obviously the Rebbe Malchus is alive physically, but they had a misunderstanding in this matter. And if I'm not mistaken, the one that was in charge is actually a Jewish guy. I think I don't want to mention the name right now. Anyway, it obviously was a mistake, but certainly the conclusion, that's how we have our organization, and it's in the government of New York. It's there. You could get a copy of it, because this finally was accepted, and it was this week, and it could have been the date of the 24th of Shvat, because I remember it was in February. I remember very well that this is a story that I only remembered recently about this story, but this is a story I used to be very excited about, that it actually happened in this time. So we got this complaint from them that they didn't want to file our organization as a result. So I had to write a letter to a certain person who was the one in charge, and I wrote to him that according to I don't remember, this is a long time ago, but according to the law of the Torah, the Rebbe Malchus says this physically alive. I don't remember exactly what I wrote, and that was around the time that I was getting. That's when I got the Psak Din, this ruling. That was the first major ruling that the Rebbe Malchus says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, says this physically alive and he's not buried, and that was around that time that I got the Rabbanim to sign it. And I remember writing a letter. I had to write a letter addressed to someone, and someone high in that office, and they accepted it. They accepted the reply. Ad kedei kach, that's how it is. The Jewish court ruled that Moshiach is alive, and the government accepted it. The government of America, it's in there. It's set in the state of America, the organization, long live our master Rebbe, King Messiah, forever and ever organization, whose president is Rabbi Schneerson. Oh, and also they had an issue with a title. I think I wrote King Moshiach. I don't know. I think we got all those things clarified, because they don't want titles either. I think Baruch Hashem, I think we got everything smooth. I certainly the organization is there, and the president is the Rebbe. Malcolm says that's for sure. So Baruch Hashem, this is something that we know is true, and things are like history repeats itself, and we have to be excited and get other people to be excited that it's happening. These sichos, the Rambam says, they're very exciting. Things that we've been waiting for, and things that our prophets have been telling us are going to happen. The Rebbe Moshiach tells us in a way that we'll see that they're actually happening, beating the swords into plowshares, and the it's look in a certain way. Even what's going on today, which is crazy, this war has been going on, but the mere fact that everyone thinks it's crazy, everyone realizes this makes no sense at all, that itself is part of this, right? Because it almost says it used to not be like that. It used to be that wars were very common, and people would kill each other left and right, and they were constantly doing this. Yeah, it was the normal thing. So the fact that people look at what's happening today as something completely out of the question, that shows that, Baruch Hashem, we're actually in a good state, relatively speaking. And we should come to an end. Come to an end of it, because we already see that. It's enough. Hashem should help. And I had a Russian driver this week. He was telling me all about this. So this is a guy. A guy is telling me it makes no sense. He doesn't understand. So a guy is telling me it makes no sense. They're two of the same religion, the same. They're not. They're just. He said it makes no sense. This is like, see, a guy. Even a guy understands it makes no sense, right? It's not a good thing. It's Baruch Hashem, at least that. And what does it mean? So there are says that tells us practically what it means for us, because we're not fighting wars, we're not fighting wars. What does it practically mean for us? There are says that says in Sikha, what it means practically is the idea of giving loans, of giving tzedakah, and being nice to each other. And it's actually, I saw, there is in this week's Dvar Malchus, explains about the three, there's in Gemara, there's 3 tractates about laws of money matters. They're called Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Basra. And the Rebbe is talking a lot about these 3 tractates of Talmud that are talking about the laws of money matters. And the Rebbe says that they're connected to the different stages of exile, because it's called Nezikin. It's in Seder Nezikin. Nezikin means damages, which damages obviously is not, it's like an exile type of thing. And then at the end, Baba Basra, which is at the end, so it's at the end of all these damages, it starts to speak about Moshiach coming. And there's in the footnote, it says to look at another sikh which also talks about the same topic, and I don't recall having seen that other sikh. Recently I saw it, Hashkar Brothers. It's very interesting that you could compare the sikhs, because they're talking about very similar topics, but the Dvar Malchus sikh is much more in a positive direction, more emphasizing the Moshiach aspect than the Galus aspect. And the practicality, what this means, the Rebbe says, is to be nice to each other. If the non-Jews realize that they should be nice to each other, most certainly Jewish people have to be nice to each other. We have to be nice people, acting nice to each other, and helping each other, and giving each other privacy if they need. Yeah, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about that you build a wall, because it says you build a wall between, if there's a shared courtyard, so they can build a wall in the middle, so each one has their own privacy. It's something that's technically, it's dividing. You're dividing 2 people, but you're dividing them for their own good, right? That they don't get their own privacy. So it's sometimes division is also helpful. Look, if everyone would live in one house, it wouldn't work, right? Everyone having their own house and their own privacy is also being nice to each other, giving each person their own privacy. So the idea is to be nice to each other, and give each person their own needs that they need. And this is all part of the idea of beating the swords into plowshares. Instead of swords, instead of weapons, having the things needed for agriculture, for the human kind. I was reading recently that things that are bare necessities, you can't hike up the price on bare necessities. And actually, in my perspective, I saw that today because there's a lot of things have went up. Prices have gone up on many things. But I saw actually today that things that are necessities, at least what I saw with my own eyes today, they didn't put the prices up. At least that's what it seemed to me. Why? Because I was buying something today, and I was actually quite shocked by one of the prices, but one of the prices I saw is actually the same. So what is it? So the aluminum pans, I was really surprised. Aluminum pans, 2 aluminum pans for $9. That was to me extreme. 2 aluminum pans for $9. And I went to them. They said, "Yeah, maybe it was it's supposed to be on sale," but it seemed that was the price. 2 aluminum pans for $9. On the other hand, the packages of lentils and peas and all that was still $1. Like that price didn't change. The price of the beer necessity, like the necessities, the things that you really need, the price stayed the same. But the things that are not really necessary, you don't need aluminum pans. You could use a regular pot. It's likely better for the environment not to use aluminum pans. When I was a kid, they told you aluminum is also not healthy. I don't know how much these things are certain, but it's certainly not a necessity, you could say. So that they made the price 4 times. I don't know. What I know of is it's $1 a pan the most, not $9 for 2 pans. So I guess the idea of the agriculture and the society trying to help people with their needs. I guess needs are still relatively inexpensive, hopefully. But there are elements that says actually in the Sikha that says they're gonna beat their swords into plowshares. Because plowshares, that's the commonly known part of this pasuk, is the beating the swords into plowshares. But plowshares is actually for your necessity, because that's wheat. It's the grain. It's what you need to sustain yourself. But the relevant says that brings the second part of the pasuk, the chanisayim lemizmoros, their spears into pruning hooks. That's actually something that's not a bare necessity, and it says because that's for fruits. And it says in the footnote that only in Eretz Yisrael, or specifically in Eretz Yisrael, wine and oil, I think oil is counted as a bare necessity. Because in halacha, getting back to what I was saying before, in halacha, bare necessities, you can't hike up the price. Things that are considered a bare necessity, you can't try to make a lot of money off of it. You gotta give people what they need and just the cost price. Obviously, the workers that are working in the field need to get paid. And the owner that's managing the company also needs to get paid, because he's not going to be able to own a company and manage it without getting paid. But to decide he's going to become a millionaire off of the wheat, he's not really supposed to do that, according to Jewish law. So in Jewish law, it says there's a difference between Eretz Yisrael and other countries. And Eretz Yisrael, wine, I think, and oil, if I'm not mistaken, those are fruits. Those in Eretz Yisrael are counted as bare necessities, and you cannot hike up the prices on that. Now, being the pasuk mentions that also, the Rebbe almost says this seems to imply here that it's necessary, especially in Eretz Yisrael, and the idea is, I guess, also to be more thinking about the needs of another, rather your own pocket. And obviously, the extreme of that would be buying weapons and doing crazy things with it. So obviously, that's the taking it to an extreme. But also thinking that you could become hike up prices and make everyone having a hard time because you want to become a millionaire on things that people need to live. That's also a form, I guess, a form of a fine line form of what? Right, right. It's like of like using money for a war instead of using money for the needs of the country. So that's it seems that's what their own system is applying, and it's interesting. I had this today. Today I was like shocked by the price of the pan, but I realized that the peas, the lentils, the peas, that stayed the same. The price didn't go up in that. So Baruch Hashem, we see that is actually happening in at least I saw today in a certain way. The needs are there, and in general, the country has a lot of ways that they try at least to help people with their needs. Use the bathroom. So this is another sign of the effort of Moshiach to promote goodness and kindness in the world. And that's a practical idea, is to be a good person and use your money wisely. Using your money wisely means using it for what you need and helping others with what they need, being charitable, using your brain to make the right decisions with your money. And that's the idea of this, in a practical way, of this beating the swords into plowshares, what it means for us. Which we're not waging wars and we're not telling them to stop the wars, because we don't really have the ability to do that. We could try to put in the words for it, but it's not going to really make it happen. But what we could do is on our scale, and that is to make the right decisions and act nicely with one another. And the way to get there, because sometimes it's quite tricky. Sometimes we're human beings and we have an evil inclination, and the evil inclination knows how to sneak his way in always. He knows how to make trouble.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out, we have to be smart of how to outsmart him or ignore him, or better yet, beat his swords into plowshares. Get him to get the evil inclination to work with us instead of against us. And the way to do that is with the Torah. The Torah has that ability. It says the non-Jews would have been still doing what they did. They would have still been, the non-Jews were constantly, they were making pogroms, they were going to Jewish cities, killing everyone, taking all their money. So it wasn't, this wasn't an uncommon thing that happened in the olden days, so to say. It was very common, Tar Dismay. And they would do that. They would make blood libels, claim that the Jewish people are killing a Christian boy and taking his blood for their matzah, which makes no sense at all. They would claim this and somehow get false witnesses to prove that this is the fact, and then that would give the right for them to kill everyone because the Jews killed one of their people, so now we could kill everyone and take everyone's money. So this wasn't an uncommon thing either. Tar Dismay was quite common, Tar Dismay. And certainly countries fighting with each other, this is more known in the history of the world. World history was very common for a country to decide one day that they want to conquer the other country wants to conquer them. They were constantly fighting with each other. And many people were always killed because of this. And this was a common thing. What made the change? Why is our world today a different world? Why is the world today looking for a peaceful world? Why? Is it because what happened suddenly? What's the change? What made the world change? And for us personally, what could make us change? What could make us be a person that is not interested in our own pockets, but rather is interested in the good welfare of yourself and of the whole world? What could make us change? Right? What can make us change? What made the world change? And it made us change also because we're part of the world. What did it and what does it? That's the Torah. The Rambam says the Torah. And the rulings of the rabbis, that's what has the ability to change the world, to change the nature of the world. And the Rambam says, explains in the Sikha that even the idea, which this is Baruch Hashem, at least for the most part, even in many crazy times, people knew, after all said and done, that what they're doing is wrong. And at least the government was in the right side, and most people hopefully were in the right side, and it was just like the minority that was the evil people. And even then, they likely knew they were not doing exactly what they were supposed to. So what made that even the non-Jews throughout history and the Jewish people at least knew that what they were doing is incorrect? So the Rambam says it's because the Torah says it. In other words, if not for the Torah telling us that stealing is incorrect, a person wouldn't feel that stealing is incorrect. It's a result of the Torah telling us that stealing is incorrect. That's what gives the power, and that's what changed today, is because we're coming closer to the time of the redemption. We can already identify Moshiach. We know it's the Lubavitch Rebbe. No one says that. This is what made the world change, that the world is a place that is much more refined. It's a much more refined place, and people are not as coarse as they used to be. They're not as money hungry and as corrupt as they used to be. And if we want to see it, we could see it. And obviously, the more Torah we learn, and the more we have emunah we have trust in the words of the leader of our generation, or in the words of the Rebbe. Malchus says that Moshiach is imminent, and we can identify Moshiach, and that keeping all the laws of the Torah is extremely important, no matter what. Even when, like I saw a sikha yesterday, even when your next door neighbor doesn't keep the Torah for whatever reason, you have to realize that what makes the decision for you is not your next door neighbor. It's a Shulchan Aruch. I saw the sikha yesterday. We have to know that the Torah is what makes the decisions for us. And that's how we run our life, that the Torah is what makes the decisions for us. That helps us overcome our evil inclination. It helps us make that the Torah is what runs our life. It keeps us strong, and we have the special gift in our generation of having a Torah teacher, a guide that's extraordinary. We have a leader, we have the Rebbe, Malchus says, that was giving us the most amazing guidance, the most positive guidance, and the greatest strength to be prepared for this amazing time that we see everything the Rebbe Malchus says happens. Like we mentioned earlier about the Russian immigration to the Holy Land, it happened. Every single thing the Rebbe says happens. And certainly about this extraordinary thing that the Dvar Malchus is telling us, that we could already identify Moshiach, and that the redemption is imminent, and that not only is it imminent, but like the Rambam says all the aspects of the redemption already began. The more we study about it, the more we see that that's actually what's happening. So Hashem says, give us the strength to continue to prepare ourselves and others for the special time that we're in, and that we're about to have in its true ultimate sense, the Gula Mitzvah Hashem is true and complete redemption. And certainly it's in our hands to do it. It's certainly in our hands to prepare ourselves and others, and going by the guidance and the connection to the leader of our generation, the Rebbe Moshiach, who is the one who has. I just saw today that a deer, if it's not saying it's a deer, has one eye open and one eye closed. It sleeps with one eye open. And the Rebbe says in the Sikha, what does this mean? That even in the time of Galus, even when we're sleeping, there's inyanim of Gula. I saw the Sikha in Tafshin Chafei, 1965. The Rambam says that the idea of the one eye open and one eye closed is that the closed eye, the reason one eye is closed is because the deer is sleeping. That's the time of exile. Even in the time of exile, one eye is open. We still could see, and we could have a foretaste of matters of the redemption. And I was just thinking now, who has that one eye open for sure is the Rebbe. Malchus sees clearly all the ultimate amazing things. The Rebbe sees it clearly. And we obviously also see it in a certain way. The Rebbe said this already in Tafshin Chafei in 1965. Certainly, this is something now that the Rebbe says we only need to open our eyes. So certainly, it's interesting. That gives like a perspective of what opening our eyes means. Because closed eyes is when a person is sleeping. Galus is compared to sleep. So when your eyes are closed, you're in Galus. So having open eyes, that itself is characteristic of Gula. And having one open eye is like in a time of Galus, even then we see part of the Gula. Certainly we could open our eyes. And hopefully Hashem, the Rebbe says, I heard someone, maybe it was someone here, I don't remember, said, after a number of weeks, the Rebbe said that we need to open our eyes. Then the Rebbe said Hashem should open our eyes. So someone said, I don't know if this is true, but someone said that after the Rebbe said it a few times and we didn't do it, so the Rebbe said, okay, you can't do it, so Hashem should do it. Hashem should open your eyes. So Hashem should already open our eyes to see the Rebbe to bring the Gula Mitzvah Shleim already. And we'll have the ultimate, we'll have the greatest joy that we're waiting for. It should be immediately. Chi Adinenu Reinu Rabbeinu Chumsei Aleinu V'ad. Chi Adinenu Reinu Rabbeinu Chumsei Aleinu V'ad. Chi Adinenu Reinu Rabbeinu Melech Chumsei Aleinu V'ad. Shachayach, Shachayach.
Wow. Beautiful. Very nice, very nice.
Give us strength.